You spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
Who is it? Who is it? Who is it?
Well, how'd you see me?
Oh my God, let me use all the words. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy. I'm so no longer as worried as I was. I'm so energetic that you're back.
Yeah, just spend a month in a hospital and have a really supporting partner and wife, and it all works out. So doing well. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great now that you're back. I knew that Kansas City loved you. Like, I don't want to make it like I didn't know that Kansas City loved you. I definitely don't want to do that. Like, I definitely understood your popularity. What I did not know is how much they loved you until you got sick, which is always the case, right? We always tell people, usually when it's too late. But I have had more calls, more texts, more LinkedIn, so many LinkedIn messages, and emails just checking in on you. I don't want to bother Scott. Just wanted to see if there was anything I could do for him. Do you know how he is? And honestly, because they love you, I've never heard the name Julie Havens more in my life, because people have been saying, how is Julie? How is she holding up? So I just want you to know how entirely loved you are. You are so loved.
Well, that's super nice. Thank you, Erin. And then obviously thank you to you and Janae for helping Julie and I. And I still haven't told people. I just told people that I had to reschedule meetings with. Yeah. So that was it, because my memory wasn't there. And so I still have some balance I'm getting back, and then some other functions that don't work. But I just still to this day not doing it. But the question I want to ask you is, how did you talk about Bank of Blue Valley by yourself? You're like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
What is one of the fastest growing banks in Kansas City, Aaron? You're like, oh, well, that's Bank of Blue Valley.
Yeah, it's hard to banter with yourself. It's not as much. Well, it's not as much fun. So Ezzy did fill in for you one day, and then the other days we already had some video shoots that he was booked on. And you and I mean, we didn't know Tuesday to Tuesday. So I talk a lot to myself at home, anyways. Janae says she watches the cameras. Like, we have some cameras on some of our doors, and she's like, you just walk around talking to yourself. I mean, I guess it was old hat, but it probably seemed weird to some people. But we did talk about Bank of Blue Valley. We talked about you a lot, and we're lucky because we have this great audience over here that always comments. So I feel like I'm with people.
Emerson
says it's so great to see you back. Janae says, Scott Havens, glad to hear you're doing well. So sorry to hear you were out. And Harry says, blessings, glad you're doing so much better. I'm surprised he didn't say when's happy hour.
Oh, no, it's amazing. I've been talking about Harry all the time. A great Harry's been an executive in Kansas City for a really long time. One of the best public speakers in Kansas City. And he invested in a company right before COVID that has not even, like, 10x is not the way of saying it, but with all these shipping things going on, I keep thinking of Harry and how well he's doing. And he's a very successful business person. So kudos to him.
All right. Well, we're talking about comments. Get on here. Tell us who you're excited to see today. We have a phenomenal panel. Tell us if you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. Where are you watching us from? So, we had a couple guests that are pretty Facebook heavy. So we had a lot of watchers from Facebook the past couple of weeks. So excited to see if any of you join us. I can see up there that some of you are. So, all right, well, let's get to our panel. First of all, Bank of Blue Valley, we have to tell you something that we can't tell you yet. But what I'm going to say is that we have a huge announcement coming up. We are going to have not one, but 2 shows next week. None of this can we announce to you until later in the week. Not one, but 2 shows next week. So make sure you're watching the page. If you don't follow the page currently, get on here and follow the page for our announcements. Chris says, welcome back, Scott. All right. You ready to get to today's show?
Chris doubled the amount of money raised for Casey Can, which you and I are on. So,
and we had a Casey Can Drinks with Leaders show. So almost double the amount of money raised this year. Thank you to everybody that donated, sponsored, all of that. All right, Juday's at LinkedIn. Let us know where you guys are. Okay, let's bring out our panel. I'm super excited. All right. Our first guest today is Miss Carlene.
Hello, everyone.
hey, Carlene.
Our next guest is Alexis.
Hi.
Hey, Alexis.
Peggy.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
And Heath. Hi, guys. How are you? I got a couple more comments here I want to get to. It looks like people are starting to jump on. This 3 o'clock hour is so funny. So Megan says, whoop, whoop, Casey Can. And Jeff says, Scott, glad to hear you're better. I suspect your return is from the timing of KU winning and Mizzou losing to the Roos. Lots of things to gain energy from.
Yeah, KU beating Texas in football.
Yeah. I could not. I mean, I'm not a football girl. Like, I don't follow that, but I know that that's unheard of. That's how much I follow that. So welcome, everybody. Let's just jump right into it. So, Carlene, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Well, it took me a long time to get to Kansas City, let me tell you, because I have only been here the past year. So my journey to Kansas City took me a while, but I'm thoroughly excited to be here finally. So I was born and raised in Syracuse, New York, and even went to school only an hour from Syracuse, New York. Went to Utica College, got out of college and went to go work for Ernst & Young. Got my CPA, did my 2 years and said, nope, auditing is not for me. I did not want to travel all around New York State. So I went to go work at a manufacturing plant very close to Syracuse, New York, called Oneida Limited. I don't know if anybody has heard of it in the Midwest, but I'm sure if you've turned over your forks, spoons, or knives at one point and you saw Oneida, it was made in Oneida, which is about 40 miles east of Syracuse, New York. So I worked there for 10 years doing internal audit, corporate reporting, and then I got into the tax department, and I got to travel some places there. I got to implement general ledger in Mexico, which was actually kind of really fun to do because the plant was in the middle of nowhere, and I could sit there and watch cows and goats walk by the window every day as I was working with everybody to implement the general ledger. Then I had 2 small children. I have 2 boys, and decided I needed to work closer to home. So I started working for a medical practice, which is the last 18 years of my life before I moved here. I say I grew up with the medical practice. It was Associates for Women's Medicine was the largest OBGYN practice in central New York. So I grew up with that practice because it was several small practices that came together to form a central business office. And I ended up, by the time I left, I was chief financial officer running the business office, which included human resources, IT. We had our own insurance billing department. I had a director of billing. We had 11 billing people. So we did everything ourselves in-house. And it really, really worked phenomenally for the doctors and was really a much cheaper cost than them outsourcing their billing, because we actually did the cost comparison several times throughout my career there. And we were able to do things better, faster, cheaper than outsourcing it. So we had a really, really good crew there. I then met the person I am with now, Matt, and he was being transferred back to Kansas City, where he had lived for many years previous to Syracuse, and ended up here in Kansas City, working for Kansas City Behavioral Healthcare, director of finance here. And we at this practice, it's not really a practice, a company that we serve individuals with autism, which is really, really phenomenal. The service we perform here or the clinicians perform, I should say, are just phenomenal. We have a clinic with little kiddos from 2 years old to 7 years old. We have a special school for autistic children when their home schools can't support them. And we have group homes and independent living facilities. And along with doing the finances here, I will tell you one of my favorite things is interacting with all our clients and the little kiddos. And one of my favorite things I've done here, I will say, is work with 1 or 2 clients that are adult age and helping them budget their money and sitting down with them and teaching them to budget. So that has been really fun here. So that's how I got here.
So 1 year in and you already know Havens.
Yes.
So where does your significant other work? And then secondly, when you talked about growing up for 18 years in the healthcare industry, were you pioneers in that space? Because today I just think of OBGYNs as predominantly female, but I know that always hasn't been the case.
No, yeah.
How give everyone kind of like the national view in the country of, if they didn't know, now they know.
Sure. Well, my significant other, he is Matt Musselman, and he is a vice president of farm services for Dairy Farmers of America. And the practice, when I said I grew up with it, I would say definitely we were pioneers in the OBGYN realm. There was no other practice in Syracuse that had the structure that we had. It was called the practice without walls. So what that meant is several different practices, independent practices, could come together and really share the same tax ID number, share a bunch of services, but yet make independent decisions, make independent clinical decisions, make independent financial decisions for their division. So it was a new concept. One of the doctors I worked for, Dr. Richard Waldman, he was very innovative. He was actually president of ACOG, the National ACOG organization, which is the top organization for OBGYN doctors. So he was very innovative, went all over the country and came back with all sorts of ideas for us to implement. And he's the one that started that practice. And our practice, when I started, I say ours, because I feel like it was mine. I worked for the doctor so long, was all males.
Okay.
And it was just probably in the last 5 or 6 years, we started recruiting a bunch of females. And I will tell you the big difference of bringing on a female physician, especially OBGYN versus a male physician, is they will start their practice and gain clients light years faster than a male OBGYN physician. We saw that day in and day out. As we brought in female physicians, they were filling up very, very quickly. If we brought on a new male physician, it took him a while to get started with his practice.
I think there's a subset of females that want to see a female.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's really a lot of patients would call up and specifically only want to see a female OBGYN.
Well, that's really interesting. It's kind of like all your worlds kind of collided when you got here in this job, right? all your paths all came together, and you're a perfect fit for the job you're at now.
I want to say, Jeff Chapman. I don't know if he's still tuning in. I think he introduced me to Matt's son, who's an incredibly bright young IT professional at a young age. And speaking of someone that's had a lot of success at a young age, I'll let Aaron transition here.
He always does like half the transition, so I'm glad you still got it, Scott. Alexis.
I'm not allowed to read the comments, and I'm not allowed to talk over Aaron. And I listened to him.
Because he reads the comments before I pull them up. Remember, that's one of the rules. And so I had to put a firm box around that, guys. That's why he's allowed to if he would wait till I pulled them up. Alexis, who are you? What do you do? How do you get to Kansas City?
Hi, so I'm Alexis Shires. I'm the Director of Operations with Brightstar Care. I do not have quite the tenure yet in my career. I am in my late 20s. I was born and raised in Kansas City. I went to KU and got my degree in health information management. And through that program, I met the owner of the current company that I am with. I started out as her intern my senior year, and then graduated and walked across the stage on Sunday and started as the branch manager the next Monday morning. And then as our business has grown, I've grown with the business, and now I sit in our director of operations role.
So, Alexis, how large were you, or what was the company size when you started, and what is the company size today? And then explain the franchise and then what you currently work with.
Of course. So we are a national franchise. So there are 350 locations across the United States. We are currently in the top 20 ranked across the United States revenue-wise. We have been here since 2016, and I currently hold that director of operations role. What was my other question?
What was the company when you started? The number of people?
Sure.
What are you today? And I have a couple other questions.
So my current admin team, when I started, there was 3 of us, and our field team had about 15. And currently today we have 10 admin team members and 220 field members. So we have grown leaps and bounds from where we began.
So we'll just explain what your organization does. The thing that blew me away when we met was, and still to this day, finding talent's insane.
It is.
Well,
we do tons of different things. So we can really do it all. So we do in-home non-skilled care. So we do elderly care for dementia, Alzheimer's, behavioral health. And then we do skilled care as well. So that's pediatric and adult patients with vents, trachs, G-tubes. We do it all. And then we've recently got into COVID testing as well. So we fill a space where we're doing in-school testing on the Kansas and Missouri side. So right now we're actively in 125 schools on a weekly basis. So we just added a couple more as of yesterday. So we're doing COVID testing on a weekly basis in the schools. The really great thing about that, to Scott's point, is of course there's a huge labor shortage right now, but there's a lot of people really interested in these opportunities because it's a really stress-free environment. They're getting to interact with the kids, the faculty members, and do that COVID testing. So the burnout that nurses and healthcare professionals are experiencing in the hospital and facility settings has really kind of worked in a benefit towards us, because all of the shifts that we offer, whether it's home care or in these COVID spaces, are all on a one-to-one basis. So everything that they're experiencing in those hospital and facility settings, they're not experiencing in home care and in COVID testing. So it's been a benefit that burnout's happening right now, and really helped it work in our favor.
Yeah, I was blown away. You're like, oh, we threw out 9 offers, 8 accepted. I was like, what? What do you in 1 week? Like, what are you doing?
In the past 3 months, we've hired 72 new nurses.
And as someone that spent time in 4 different hospitals overnight, I literally felt cool because I wasn't coherent all the time, but I was like, oh, hey, are you traveling nurse? Because of our conversation, it's just amazing, the work-life balance. And you're offering a great opportunity for someone to make more money and to have a better work-life balance and be happier. But man, hospitals, woo! I mean, the people are running, and I can't give a good argument why they shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent one night in a hallway just because there's just not service. So it's nuts.
Well, yes. Well, my partner is in healthcare, and they're so short-staffed on top of that her loyalty is almost killing her.
Yeah.
Right? When you become that loyal person. So let's talk offline, Alexis.
It's crazy too, because through all of this, I was interested to see what types of nurses these opportunities attract. And it's so interesting to see, because I have a lot of nurses that have tons of tenure in their nursing career, and they're burnt out, of course. And so they're leaving the floors. But I have so many brand new nurses too, coming out of school, because they're going into these hospital and facility settings and experiencing so much burnout in the leadership teams that it's just not the culture that they thought it was going to be. It's not kind of the culture that was pitched to them through school. So it's been interesting to see how this has really affected all ages and all nurses in different pieces of their career.
Well, and what I have found is that business, we talk about culture all the time, right? Every
Sure.
single one of us talk about business. I was on a podcast earlier. We talked about culture. in a hospital, that's not a conversation that they're having either, right? That's not top of the priority list. So yeah, I bet you've seen all sorts of things. And they went from being heroes last year to this year running. So I understand why you guys are growing like that. And that's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Also, I think you should put content. This is my marketing side piece. And then we're going to move on. I think you should put video content into anything you do because you're great on video. So just go take that.
I'm not your awkward one that's like diving in my kitchen.
I liked it though. Elise Myers. If you've seen Elise Myers, which I'm sure a lot of you have on the show, let us know. But I was trying to explain Elise Myers to Alexis earlier because she did the dive. So I enjoyed it. Peggy, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Hi, yeah, I'm Peggy Bennett with Burns and McDonnell. And I came full circle to Kansas City. And what I mean by that is I actually lived here when I was 10 years old. We moved here from Boulder, Colorado. And it was great because all my family was here, my grandparents, my cousins. And then my parents told me when I was a freshman in high school, hey, we're going to move to Plano, Texas. And I have to admit, being in high school, that was kind of a tragedy, as you can imagine. But I arrived in Texas, and about a month later, I realized, you all know that show, Friday Night Lights. It is Friday Night Lights in Texas when you're in high school. So it was fabulous. I loved it. So long story short, I did go to KU because Rock Chalk Jayhawk. But once I graduated, I moved back to Dallas, Texas. Absolutely loved it. Worked for a firm there. And that was kind of where there's a theme throughout my career that's kind of happened, which is I have had amazing mentors throughout my career. At my very first firm, I had a mentor. She was our director of our interior studio who kind of taught me the technicalities of construction and construction documentation. And I really was able to perfect that being there. And long story short, this is where love enters the picture. My husband, Jeff Bennett, and I, we met. And so that moved me actually to Austin, Texas. So I traveled from Dallas to Austin, worked for a firm there, again, where I had an amazing mentor. This time it was actually the owner of the company because it was a much smaller architecture firm, but really kind of taught me the ins and outs of project management. And then one day from there, got home from work and my husband was like, hey, what would you think of moving to San Jose, California? So I was like, well, absolutely. We had no kids at the time and just, young and hip and in our mid to late 20s. And so we drove with our 2 greyhounds and our cat. We look like the Clampetts, moving halfway across the United States. But we got to Silicon Valley and lived there for about 10 years and absolutely loved it. In fact, I would say that is definitely the place where I had just some of the most memorable mentors in my career. Not only because I'm in the architectural field, but not only design and project management, but also in mentorship and kind of reaching out beyond the company that I was working for. I do think that I kind of had my head buried in the sand and only working for the company that I was with at the time. And the president there and the director of design there, she and he really taught me to kind of reach out to the outside world, whether it be people in construction, furniture dealerships, building owners, commercial real estate individuals, and really get to know the community that I was in. And I began to volunteer outside of my company. And that, anyways, it became a real passion. And it was also the first time I got involved in a women in leadership group. In fact, those 5 women, I still see them today on LinkedIn and we're still, friends, but we all used to, I don't know if anyone remembers the book Lean In. It came out, I think, in 2010, and it was an amazing book about women in leadership. And we would read a chapter and then get together and meet on the book. But those memories have really stuck with me in my career, which then, after 10 years of living in California, brought me back to Kansas City. So we had our 2 littles out there and really wanted them to be close to family, which really brought us again back to Kansas City. But I've really taken that mentorship that I've learned and been, very blessed to have in my career and have really tried to do that here in Kansas City, not only within the firms that I've worked for, but also in outreach to the community. I know I was just on the committee for the gala for New House KC, which is a domestic violence shelter here in Kansas City.
Fabulous event. I went to a fabulous event. Yes.
It was amazing. Yeah. So I was on the committee and we actually beat our goal by $200,000, which was incredible. So just a really amazing event. But my passion, for that sort of thing has just really come out. And I give credit to really the mentors that I've had. So I hope to be a mentor for younger designers in my field. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Aaron was a part of raising over $60,000 through Casey Can for Newhouse Women's Domestic Violence Shelter. And Peggy, the interesting thing of talking about being involved in the community. So Casey Can funds a lot of different non-for-profits, but and there's a lot of great. I don't want to get in trouble for saying this. There's so many needing non-for-profits. And Newhouse is absolutely one of them for many different reasons. But because of Courtney, the CEO, everyone knew her in the room, and therefore everyone voted for that to be the fund in need. And it speaks to her hard work and determination and persistence, which leads me to the point of you moving companies, because a lot of people know you in your industry. So it was one of those things where everyone's like, whoa, what, Peggy's moving, going to Burns and Max. So I mean, why'd you make that decision? Because you're at a great organization. You're in an industry where everyone knows you, which is a fixed industry. I call it kind of the architects, engineers, general contractors, everyone kind of knows each other. What made you make that switch?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have a contact in the industry who actually introduced me to a gentleman there, our design director, Trevor Hoyland. And I met him and Joel Jacobson from our company, and I was sold. The way that they both spoke with such passion about the projects that we work on.
Did you know you were being recruited?
Well, yes, I did.
You're like, you show up to coffee, you're like, hey, what's up?
No, I did know I was being recruited.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But it was just an incredible conversation. And when they were done telling me about the projects and the people within the company, I mean, I was sold. It just, and I know we're not supposed to get to this part yet about like the biggest win for our company, but I'm just gonna launch right into it if that's okay. But it's, our company has just won for the 16th year in a row, Casey's Best Places to Work. And I can tell you after being there only, 2.5 months, that I can see why that is. The project teams that I've worked on are so elevated and advanced, and the projects that we're working on, I mean, the full design process is in place. And I mean, clients are, repeat clients over and over and over. And there's a reason. And it's just because I do think it goes back to, we are an employee-owned company. In fact, we just celebrated our 35th year of being an employee-owned company, and we became employee-owned back when companies, that wasn't even a thing. So I just think that when a company is employee-owned, people really put their heart and soul into being, kind of having that owner mentality, if you will, which really makes for amazing projects. So.
Yeah, that ESOP is pretty impressive.
Yes.
So sorry about asking the question of like, did you know? Because it's almost like you're such a big deal in the industry. People have to ask permission before they talk to you.
Oh, stop. No.
People may know each other. Like, what? You're recruiting them? So, but, in this show, ladies always go first. So I'll let Aaron transition for a very patient CEO in waiting.
Heath, is he still here? Okay. Heath, who are you?
Thank
What
goodness
do you
he's
do?
so nice.
He is really nice. And how do you get to Kansas City?
I'm Heath Stover. I'm one of the founders of Umbrella Managed Systems. We're a IT managed services and managed security provider here in KC. I grew up far west edge of Kansas. Anybody who's driven to Colorado has driven right through Colby, Kansas. We have a Starbucks now. We're a really big deal. So it's basically the stopping point between Hayes and Denver from there. Left Colby, came to Kansas City directly to go to school here. Met my business partner, Trent Peters, and my wife, Michaela, in college. So that paid off really well. But so I've now been in Kansas City longer than I was in Colby. So this has been home for almost pushing 25 years now, and just love it here. But during college, Trent and I lived on the plaza just south of Brush Creek, and we would walk across Brush Creek every Wednesday night, go drink a pitcher of beer at Fred Piat's, and basically start a fake company at 20, 21, 22, and Umbrella was idea number 7 that actually stuck and actually worked. At that point in time, we were 24, so we were just young and dumb and or arrogant enough to think that we could pull it off, and that was almost 15 years ago. So shortly after that, got married, have 3 beautiful kids that, interestingly enough, that Carlene and I crossed paths in many ways. Umbrella actually started out as Umbrella Medical Systems. So we work exclusively in healthcare. And when the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act happened in 2009, we rode the electronic medical record implementation wave for about 5 years. And that's all we did was implement medical records. But incidentally enough, I also have an 8-year-old who's on the spectrum, Carlene. So I don't know of your organization specifically, but I guarantee you my wife does. But yeah, that was 15 years ago. We started the company, and this is home now. So yeah.
Did you ever walk next door to Blonde after Fred Piat's?
I think that probably cost way too much money, but we were incredibly broke at that point in time. So highly unlikely, Aaron.
I bartended there for a little bit,
Okay.
so I didn't know. People said that like, you look familiar. I'm like, no, I don't.
Aaron, was that expensive? Was it like power and light?
I imagine it was expensive if you were a 20-year-old boy.
There you go, for sure.
Mm-hmm, but I didn't pay a lot of my own
this
drinks
is
then.
where I get to make Aaron be like, what's Blonde? What is that? Alexis is like, what?
Alexis, yes.
So Heath, one thing I'm always so jealous about is the way you run your organization in terms of financially. You are very you take the long path. You don't take a lot of risk. You're very choosy about your clients. You pick really good clients. I'm assuming that everyone, whenever I give someone that answer, I'm assuming it came from pain. But what else? I personally never trust anyone that has a company that just went well, because I always say, if I'm giving advice to anyone on the panel and they're like, should I hire them? I'm like, no, they rode a rocket ship. So I know there's been a lot of pain, but what other guiding lights are there on how you run your business? And because I think that's a big reason for your success.
You're not wrong about the pain. I mean, you and I talked about this a lot. About 5-6 years ago, we decided to reinvent who we were. We spent 3 long, hard years just buried in operations, making sure that the organization would deliver on the promises we made from a sales perspective, but candidly also make sure that we were doing it in a profitable fashion. But the guiding light of working with people you enjoy and choosing our clients has been a huge deal for us over the last 3 years, when we kind of came out of that operational deep dive and figured out how to properly grow and scale to kind of get to where we are today. So yeah, we spend a lot of time with our clients, not only, and even our prospective clients, not only from the sales cycle, but understanding, like, are we actually a good fit for you, and are you actually a good fit for us? Because if one of those things is not true, that is entirely okay. And if we can even send you to somebody that is a better fit for you, I will gladly do that. But choosing people that understand what we are trying to do, from not only from a technology perspective, but from a service delivery, and really trying to drive value to their organization through technology is a big deal for us. And we want to make sure that lines up with what they're trying to do, because it always doesn't. And that's okay sometimes too.
So you'll be on a goal line and you'll be ready to sign a deal, and you'll be like, hey, I don't think we're meant for each other.
Mm-hmm. We've walked away from a handful of things. We've had people asking for agreements, and we've had to walk away. I mean, I don't want to say this happens all the time, because it's incredibly difficult to do with what we have. One of our business coaches likes to call it crack revenue, that you just take it and it's really hard to let go And we learned the hard way, talking about the pain from years ago. We had a lot of clients when we went through this transition, when we started 3-4 years ago, that we had to go ask them to find a new provider and help them find a new provider because they just weren't a good fit for us, or vice versa for that matter. So it happens once or twice a year that we'll have to walk away from something that, for whatever reason, it could be culture, it could be they want us to do something that doesn't fit in our box, and we don't like to do that, because as soon as you start creating exceptions, all it does is create opportunity to fail, and we really, really don't like to do that.
Man, thank you for the whole panel for letting me go through business therapy right now and talking to Heath, because my business partner and I, we did 2 of the fastest growing companies in Kansas City that shot over 100. We were like, oh, well, this will be fine. You know, they're getting sophisticated, they're growing. But what we end up doing is we end up we build it for them. And when you're building something for someone else's company like you're doing, they don't like being, you know, no one likes to be told what to do with their own company because they've always done it the right way. So what, last question, I know Aaron has questions. 2 questions. Do you know Michelle Ryan? That grew up in Colby, Kansas. She works at, I'm going to introduce you. She works at Adams Brown.
You don't know everyone that's ever been there?
My mother does, but no, I don't.
Oh,
that might be her married name too, or maiden name. I'm not sure. Who knows? Okay.
And then when did the epiphany? Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Which epiphany?
The right client saying no, like getting into the goal line and going, ooh, this doesn't feel good.
It was probably about 5 years ago. Trent and I sat down and had a hard conversation because what we were doing just wasn't fun anymore. And we were like, all right, if this isn't going to be fun and we can't do it in a successful fashion, like, let's just not do it. And that's how we got into the cycle of our methodology, not only like how we choose clients, but our operational methodology of how we were going to deliver for our own satisfaction as well as our clients. So it was probably 5 years ago.
That's the lesson. That's why you run your own company. Go through a big ton of thorns and a bunch of hard work, and then make the decision of like, hey, we make enough money. Let's just work with people we like.
I don't know if it matters if you even make enough money, because what I learned early on when I said yes to everything is it actually costs you money to bring on the clients that you know. I mean, there's nothing worse than you know before they sign that you should run the other way. Those end up costing you so much more money. So it's almost like you're losing money at some point sometimes when you bring them
Heath,
on.
You're just preaching to Aaron and I.
I've done a really good job of that. We've actually walked away from 3 different big deals this year because, and you know, coming out of a pandemic, that wasn't easy. But to Heath's point, like it gets to where it's not fun. It's costing you money. It's exhausting. And
you don't always know either. Like we still fall into it too. Like you take one on, you think it's a fit, and then you have to go and reframe and have a different conversation. And then it's that much more difficult. But we found it to be incredibly effective
we need to get a business group together, not say the name of anything, but be like, this happened, this was a scenario, and this is why it didn't feel right. Because I feel like it goes to hiring, which a lot of people on this panel do, and it goes to a lot of different things. So it's interesting. I feel like there's a new curveball. The more if we just listen to it, we'll ask more questions and figure it out.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on, Heath. Okay, listen, Scott is talky today for someone that hasn't been on the show for 4 days. No, it's great. We're just going to switch stuff up a little bit. First of all, I wanted to pull up. Toby says it's great to see you. Janae says traveling nurses have assisted rural hospitals as well. Rob says, Scott, it's great to hear that you're back and getting healthy. Peggy, it's great to hear you talk about mentorship and women in leadership. Agreed. You are such a great connector and collaborator in the business and design process. And then I've got to pull up this other comment because this happens every now and then on the show. And I just love this. Shout out to my wife, Peggy. I don't know how you do it all, but you make it look easy.
Family show.
Thank you.
I love when people's partners get on here and they like sponsor them, right? Like I absolutely love it. Actually, Chris Culbertson's wife commented on here the other day, and he was on the show a long time ago. She's going to come on eventually. We had lunch the other day, and she said, I watch the show every week ever since Chris was on there. And I was like, oh, what a good, yes. So I love the support. All right, here's the deal. We're a little over time. So we're going to talk about your biggest win. little bit shorter than the last round, but if you could talk about a big win, because something big happened during the show. And so I've got to leave about 5 minutes to announce that. You guys are a part of a huge announcement that I've been told, if you saw me looking at my second screen, that I have to announce here at the end. So if you could do like 3 to 4 minutes, your biggest win, even if you kind of already talked to us about it, that's fine. Just elaborate a little bit. Let's shoot around 3 minutes. Let's start with you, Carlene.
I would say my biggest win happened back at the OBGYN practice in New York. And that was when I discovered Medicare fraud. And I discovered it quickly enough that we were able to put a halt to it and self-disclose to CMS. How it happened was we had brought on 2 new physicians. And when I was reviewing accounts receivable, kept asking my billing director, why is their Medicare aging so quickly? Like, I don't understand why, these 2 new physicians have aged out Medicare. And she kept giving me a story, and I was like, bought it at first, but then not so much. And then all of a sudden she got taken out of work for a medical reason. And while she was out, I had to obviously do some of her job, and discovered that all of a sudden some of these physicians' payments were getting paid. Some of these physician payments for Medicare were not getting paid. And I was like, okay, well, why are some getting paid? Why are some not getting paid? Long story short, dug into that and discovered that before she went out on medical leave, she had never credentialed these new physicians with Medicare. So Medicare was denying all their claims. So to try to cover her tracks, before she sent the claims out, she was changing the rendering provider on the claim to a physician that was actually credentialed with Medicare. And that's how some of them were getting paid. So it was then kind of digging in to figure out, the significance of it. Thank goodness she hadn't been doing it for very long before she went out, and we quantified it, self-disclosed to CMS, paid them the money back, and thank goodness we're able to move on. So
I
I would consider that my biggest win.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just gonna say, I swear, every time it's white collar fraud, people would have just, if they took that same energy and put somewhere else, they would have made way more money. It always sounds like so much work to come up with these schemes.
Or you know what? If you made a mistake, just own up to it.
Sorry, Aaron, I know you're in transition. There's jail time with Medicaid fraud, which is why it's such a big win. There was a general counsel that I'm good friends with that runs a CEO group and prevented Medicare fraud and then left to avoid jail time. He was not involved, but I just learned about it last week. It's a big deal.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a really big deal, because if you are, as a practice, accused of Medicare fraud, forget it. Like, you're out of practice. You're not practicing anymore. You're not accepting any insurances. You're basically done.
Yeah, it's like, he's like, well, I don't. The CEO is like, why don't you want to work with me anymore? And he's like, because I don't want to leave in handcuffs. And I'm like, his name's Steve Johns, really cool guy. He's been on the show. I'm like, Steve, aren't you over exaggerating a little bit? He's like, no, you go to jail. I was like, oh, okay.
No, it's the really frustrating part was, because obviously we fired her. She applied for unemployment, and of course, I was fighting her unemployment to the point where it was such a like the principle of it that I actually got our lawyer involved, and we actually went to a trial for unemployment. And do you know we lost? and to this day, our attorney and I, like, we just commiserate over that loss, because it's just unfathomable that she got unemployment. But I chalk it up to New York State always, fighting or siding on the side of the employee and not understanding what actually happened. But it's very frustrating.
Alexis, what has been your biggest win this past couple of years?
I'm going to echo a lot of what I said earlier in just knowing that we adapted to our market. So when COVID started, I was 25, 26, I want to say. And it was running a company and growing significantly through the past 2 years. We were traditionally at that point still a home care based company. And especially when COVID first started, nobody wanted additional people in their homes. It was so scared. So our revenue at the very beginning just tanked. So it was a sit down conversation with myself on how do I adapt to this? Where are our strengths? Where do we have people that we can place? And what do we do? What do we do with those people? How do we grow those lines we've not grown before? So it was being able to have that conversation with myself and then go after it with a way that, there was no stopping because our business was at risk at that point. And finding those different niches that we've been able to fill in the marketplace now and growing through everything. So, when we started through COVID, we were ranked in the 100, 150, and now we're up to number 18 across the system with every Brightstar in the nation. So it's been a huge growth effort, and it was just how do we find that, identify it, go after it, and grow it.
I have a strong opinion that I've been saying on a lot of things, that I think that people that are mid-20s, early 20s, first, second job out of COVID are going to be some of the hardest, best workers, most innovative that we've ever seen, because everybody was in some sort of job where really a lot came on them and said, wait, what do we do here? We don't know this, right? So yeah, and that's amazing to hear.
Yeah, it's my first job. I was 3 years out of college and a pandemic fell on my lap. I had an entire team I was responsible for, and I had to keep a business open. So, it was, how do I do that? What resources do I use? And, there have been hours spent doing it, and I would do it all over again. The people we've been able to help and the spaces we've been able to fill where there were gaps in our industry have been great.
I love it.
Peggy,
I'm sorry.
No, I'll get talkative. Go, Peggy.
Sometimes there's a delay, right? Peggy, it sounds like you've had a lot going on during the past couple of years, but what's been your biggest win? I know you kind of jumped into it earlier.
Yes. Yeah. I kind of talked about my company wins, but, I love how, they've talked about their personal wins. And I kind of had to think about that as you guys were talking. And I would definitely say from a personal standpoint that seeing the individuals that I've mentored as younger designers grow into their own and become really leaderships in the community. I mean, the women that I've mentored, some of them are now leaders, leading their own groups within a studio, perhaps, and some of them outside the studio, and then some back in California as well. So I just, that makes me so proud to know that I've contributed to that, just because, I've had multiple mentors over my career who have mentored me, and I'm happy to be able to give back.
I love that. Do you do any mentorship, like formal mentorship, like through any of the mentorship groups?
Well, actually, I am involved in Crew, and I actually sit on the mentorship committee. And, this has been my first year, and with COVID, it's been a little difficult to do some of our mentorship kind of outings, if you will. But we do like a speed dating mentor to mentoree, if you will, or mentee, sorry. But yes, so I have been meeting with my mentee. In fact, we have lunch coming up later this week. So I'm very excited about that. And really, the thing about being a mentor is sometimes the mentee is actually teaching me too. So sometimes I don't necessarily think of myself as a mentor. I'm still very much learning. I don't care if you are 2 years out of school or you are 30 years out of school. I truly believe you are learning at all points in your career and in life in general.
I would 100% agree. Heath, what has been a big win for you this past couple of years?
This year, specifically this year, something near and dear to Scott's heart was we've grown 30% year to date so far this year.
What?
I know, right? Like we talked early this year.
Trying not to sign up clients and you grow by 30%?
No.
Didn't say he wasn't not trying to sign up clients.
Yeah, you know what? It's good you stayed at Fred Piazza instead of going to Blonde.
But we launched sales and marketing late in 2020, Q4. And I wish I could tell you it was that flywheel started turning. 90% of it was referral, which is like the greatest compliment we could get. And we'll take that all day long. We're hoping it continues into
everyone was shaking their head.
Yeah. So
that marketing is top of mind. It keeps you top of mind though.
Yeah, I know. I hear you, Aaron.
They're referred to you, but then they got to keep thinking about you. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what everyone that says that hires Lily and James, they're always like, yeah, 30%.
top of mind. Yes.
There you go.
Thank you, Scott, for that. Well, Heath, that's a pretty big win. 30% is kind of a huge win, actually.
Yeah, and now just like everybody else is, we're trying to find really good people to bring on board too, and it's super exciting. It comes with plenty of challenges too.
Right.
I'm going to pay you 50% more, even though we had a 30% gain. And you get to do whatever you want, and you don't never have to show up to work.
Deal.
You'll get all the people. We do a 4-day work week, and a lot of people want to work here. So just go to that. That's fine. Works. Okay. Are you guys ready for our exciting announcement? I don't think, Scott, we're going to get to your thing because we have to announce this. This was not in our plans today at all.
10 minutes.
We have. You still want to try to fit it in? Look, he's like, I need do your icebreaker really quick. Everybody gets 60 seconds to answer because I have to.
Is it really going to be that long? Because I was just going to ask, if you're going to a movie theater, what are you getting at the snack bar? But we can
do it. Okay, Carlene, what are you getting at the snack bar? This is favorite part of the show. It's first show back. We got to do it. What are you getting?
You're like giving me sympathy because I was sick, and I don't want this sympathy.
You know I hate this part of the show. It's not new, but it's 100% sympathy, and we're doing it. Carlene, what
Okay, now I guess we're all going to go through the exercise now.
I'm getting popcorn and a glass of wine.
Oh,
I like those movie theaters. Those are my type of movies. They have the
Diet
kickback
Coke and
chairs.
milk duds.
what?
Diet Coke and milk duds.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Peggy?
I'm doing a popcorn and a Diet Coke, definitely.
Heath?
Twizzlers and Jack and Coke.
God, whole new world. All right, Aaron, are you ready? I'm ready for the big news.
I'm ready for the big news too. So full disclosure, this news was not supposed to hit any media until Thursday. And it hit today because that's what the media loves to do, is hit today, right? I think that's their job, is to try to break the story. So on a week from Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday, we're going to have a whole show dedicated to this man. But the huge news is that as of this month, as of today, I guess, it was supposed to be as of Thursday, Bob Rainier, who founded Bank of Blue Valley, is actually transitioning, and he's going to be spending more time on the board as the board chair on the board, right, Scott? Am I saying that correctly? And less time in the bank, more on the chair, transitioning to really kind of enjoy these years with family. But is still very excited because he's still going to be very involved. He founded Bank of Blue Valley. He founded so much stuff in Kansas City, and so many of the clients are his dear friends. So he's going to be very involved, but he is transitioning. And Business Journal just broke it 20 minutes ago. Wow. So if you want to read the whole article, go check out the Business Journal today.
Yeah, so Aaron was getting emailed by our friend Beth, who is our boss. We joke around, and she was like just wanting to do it, and she was emailing Aaron live while doing it.
So this is really huge. Do you want to name a couple of the things that he's founded? I know the golf course over here, but name some of the things, Scott, because you're our Kansas City history.
So I am on the Overland Park Arts and Recs Committee. So it oversees everything from like the Arboretum, the farmstead, the golf courses, public arts, and the Rainier family has been involved in pretty much all of it. So when you think about the evolution of Kansas City and Kansas City, Missouri, Overland Park was its first suburb on a large scale. And so when you think of 435, when you think of College Boulevard, when you think of Metcalf, the Rainier family has founded it. And the crazy thing is, when they were asking Aaron and I to put together the show, they mentioned someone that Aaron and I are really good friends. If there's a Mount Rushmore of sainthood of nice people, this person would be on it. But she doesn't have a huge business. She is someone that just genuinely cares about people, wants to know how Carlene's doing, wants to check in with Peggy. It has no monetary value. And when a gentleman that has built Kansas City, or not Kansas City, when he has built kind of the first suburb of Kansas City, Overland Park and beyond, to become a top 5 bank in the metro, it's mind-blowing that he talks about this person that, I don't think he's probably even given that person over a $10,000 loan but he talks about her as one of his favorite clients and first clients he's ever had.
So I think we can announce that. So Bob Rainier is actually going to come on our special show next week, and he's going to have the first person he ever gave lending to, which is Dr. Michelle Robin. So she will be on the show. George, I can't pronounce his last name. Can you, Scott?
He already wants to murder me anyway. He's the CEO of Union Station. One time I planned a meeting there, and someone planned an after party that wasn't at Pure Ponds. So he basically hosted us, and then we went to another happy hour.
That's terrible, but he's amazing. He's very close with Bob, so he's going to be on. And then the new CEO of Bank of Blue Valley, Brent, is going to be on. So you have got to watch both Tuesday and Thursday next week, because the Thursday show is dedicated to Bob. We are super excited. We didn't think we were going to get to tell you. So this is super exciting for a week. But go check out the Business Journal article. You look like you want to say something, Scott.
Our boss just commented.
I know. I'm going to pull. You guys remember all the rules I gave you earlier? Like, don't talk about the comments till I pull up the comments. So yeah, that's why we go over them. Not your boss, but it is exciting news. Beth is the one running everything behind the scenes. We couldn't do what we do without her. So she's amazing. She's now at Bank of Blue Valley. Toby wanted to answer your question for the, I don't know where he's going to the movies at, but he has a bucket of beers and nachos. It's very
genius. What a genius.
Janae's very excited. Fantastic. How wonderful announcement. I know, right, Janae? This worked out perfect. And shout out to Bob Rainier for announcing his official retirement today. Great man. See you next week. With that, we will see all of you both Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday's at 3. Thursday is at noon. We will be announcing all of those later this week. We'll see you. Thank you so much to our panel. You guys were absolutely wonderful. Make sure you go connect with our panel. They're doing amazing things, and you want to watch them and follow them and be their fans because they are amazing. Thank you to Bank of Blue Valley. We will see you same time, same place next week.